So we are just halfway through the 6th season of Miraculous Ladybug, and the episode Yaksi Gozen finally answered any lingering questions I still had after the season 5 finale. Not only did we get insight into Tomoe and Lila's current standing in the series, but as well as a glimpse into Tomoe's past, and our first look at the official design for Chrysalis. Hey guys, in today's video, we'll be analyzing the latest season 6 episode, Yaksi Gozen, and discussing all of my thoughts and theories, so let's get into it. The beginning of this episode takes place back in the season 5 finale, where we can see what it was like from Tomoe's perspective. While Tomoe urges Monarch to let their plan unfold without putting himself at risk, Monarch argues he knows what he's doing, which clearly he didn't, and betrays Tomoe right then and there. Though Tomoe is considerably just as evil as Monarch, it does seem like she was genuinely worried about Kagami in this moment, and even later on in the episode. It's then that Tomoe calls Lila and tells her that Gabriel has cut her off the system, and that his obsession may cause them to lose everything. This is when Lila is ordered by Tomoe to go to his mansion and be her eyes and arms. You could only imagine the shock I was in when 1, it was revealed that Tomoe was the one who ordered Lila to go to the mansion, and 2, the fact that both her and Lila had already formed an alliance at this point in the series. Back to the present timeline, we can see Marinette exchanging a bag of choquettes with one she's specially prepared for Adrien. Each one contained a piece to Marinette's puzzle that would lead Adrien to a note from Marinette, just to tell him that she loves him and hopes he has a good day. While it is a little over the top, it is really adorable and gives Adrien the idea to add a little bit of Marinette flair into his surprises. For the first time this season, Felix also makes a return in this episode, as him and Kagami had been planning out a way for them to hide their rings that hold their amok somewhere safe in order to limit the risks of their lives ever being in the hands of someone else again. Someone who could order them around like a puppet, and just moments later, this would be proven to be a necessary precaution. It was so adorable here how Kagami told Felix "I love you" in Japanese, and I'm so glad to see the two of them flourishing. Ever since Felix retrieved Kagami's ring, she's finally managed to get control of her own life again. And though Tomoe isn't making it easy by reminding Kagami that she's wasting her time with that boy, both Kagami and Long stand up to Tomoe, which is when she reminds them that Kagami is putting her life in the hands of a monster who could be rid of her with a snap of his fingers. Kagami snaps back and tells her mother that the only monster here is you. Immediately, Tomoe goes to take back Kagami's ring when she transforms into Ryuko, and I get chills every time I rewatch this scene. It's in this moment that Ryuko silences her mother and exposes her for all of the lies she's made and promises she's broken. Before we get into that though, we need to discuss the animation in this scene. You can feel the power when Ryuko finally puts her foot down, and the animation does a flawless job at showcasing that. Just before she puts her foot down, there's 2 different frames consisting of black and white, and then this shot, which is just phenomenal. The lightning, the shaking, and the voice acting was amazing, and this is yet another scene from season 6 that I'm adding to my Miraculous favorites. Kagami reminds her mother that she saved her from humiliation. Tomoe was Monarch's accomplice, and had it not been for Kagami making a promise to Ladybug that her mother would change, while Ladybug may have failed to do so with Gabriel, she would have brought Tomoe to justice. Season 6 has done an incredible job at elaborating on already existing characters and giving them realistic and meaningful problems that they're dealing with. At this point, I think it should actually be called Miraculous Ladybug Tales of Toxic Parents, because tell me why, nearly every holder has family problems. What makes this moment even more meaningful though is when Kagami admits that while she should stop loving her mother for everything she's done, she just can't. She knows how lucky she is to still have her mother in her life, and even brings up Adrien and how he lost his father. Kagami is an incredibly strong and intelligent character, and this scene alone put this episode at such a high bar for me personally, but just wait because it gets better. Just as Tomoe finds herself alone, she finally takes off her glasses and reveals what many of us have been suspecting all along: her eyes and what really happened to them. We're taken back in time to when Tomoe and Kagami first lived in Tokyo, and the day that Gabriel first reached out to Tomoe. At this point, the two had already known each other since Tomoe used the Peacock Miraculous to create Kagami, the consequences being her losing her eyes. It's interesting to think that while some of the users suffered devastating losses, such as Emily, Adrien's mother, and Colt, Felix's father, losing their lives, and Natalie being the next if not for Gabriel's wish? There's people like Tomoe who lost her eyes at the expense of using the damaged Peacock Miraculous. Gabriel reached out to her so that with her help, they could repair the Peacock Miraculous so that Natalie could fight alongside Gabriel/Hawkmoth. This makes me question the knowledge and resources Tomoe had access to at the time, since I'd imagine she too was in a weakened state and bound to end up like the rest of the users. While losing her eyes was bad enough, it's a miracle that she's still alive when compared to everyone else. Tomoe immediately rejects this idea, reminding Gabriel that as if losing his wife wasn't bad enough for using it. Gabriel, however, persuades Tomoe by offering to share the wish with her. Gabriel would get Emily back and Tomoe would get her eyes back, to which Tomoe responds, that would mean betraying the kingdom. What kingdom could she be referring to? It's then that she reminds Gabriel that she's been disappointed by men her entire life, after looking back at a scroll in her office with a poem that says, "A father's goodness is higher than the mountain, a mother's goodness deeper than the sea." Could Tomoe be referring to a man she may have been romantically involved with while pregnant with Kagami? I always imagined that Tomoe was on her own, even before using the Miraculous to have Kagami. But after this episode, many fans are left believing that this could involve Lila. It's in this moment that Gabriel and Tomoe make a trade. Kagami will be with Adrian in return for her help with restoring the broken Miraculous. Tomoe snaps out of this memory after Lila intrudes by saying, "Hello, mother. Forgive my intrusion, but I've sensed your disappointment, so I thought I'd pay you a little visit." At first, when I watched this episode, I simply thought that Lila was trying to imitate Kagami, but having seen it a few times now, I'm genuinely beginning to wonder if Tomoe could be Lila's real mother? It sounds crazy, and I wouldn't be surprised if us fans just blew this line out of proportion, but there's too much evidence to not analyze this further. We know that Tomoe has been disappointed by men in the past and was probably left alone to raise Kagami, yes, but potentially even another? Not to mention last season with how close Lila was becoming with Kagami, even referring to her as a sister. Nothing in Miraculous is ever just a coincidence, and Thomas himself replied to one user on Twitter, who referenced back to the moment Lila told Kagami, "You're like a sister," and this scene from the episode where Lila calls Tomoe mother. Thomas replied with a smirking, laughing gif. He could totally be leading us on, but for now, I'll gladly play into it because this is interesting. Just from Lila's body language alone, you can tell that she's comfortable around Tomoe too, even going to give her a kiss on the cheek after transforming into Chrysalis right next to her. Her design with the butterfly Miraculous looks amazing, and I'm obsessed with her mask and hair. Throughout this conversation between Chrysalis and Tomoe, I even get the vibe that Chrysalis is enjoying talking about Kagami in this negative light to her mother, who they may very well share. Chrysalis comes up with the idea to akumatize Tomoe into Yaksi Gozen so that she can capture Felix. Chrysalis would be waiting inside of Yaksi Gozen so that she could steal his ring and control him, forcing him to become her spy and reveal all the information she'll need in order to seize Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous. Felix would wear a fake ring to avoid any suspicions, and once Chrysalis escaped the scene, Tomoe would pretend to reject the Ultra Akuma and apologize to Kagami. Unrelated, but in a recent interview that Miraculous shared, this scene in particular was revealed, and with the Tokyo special around the corner and no Cat Noir or Felix in sight, I assumed that this could be from it, but turns out it's just from this episode. This frame is so cool and I'm still obsessed with it, and well, obviously if you've already seen the episode, you'll know that while their plan doesn't go as followed, it certainly could have ended up like this had Kagami and Felix not switched rings last minute unintentionally. Feligami is finally reunited at last, and together they meet with Marinette in hopes to successfully carry out their plan of keeping the ring safe within her yo-yo. It was such a breath of fresh air to see the characters like Felix and Kagami explaining the system with the rings and amux, because to this day, I still see people arguing within the comments of some of my older videos regarding the Senti Monster topic that they're not senti beings. Personally, I find the Senti Monster aspect of the Miraculous series to be one of the most interesting parts to it, so I especially enjoyed this episode. It's explained that if the rings were stored within Ladybug's yo-yo, they would continue to exist in the form of probabilities, only being accessible to Ladybug and literally leaving their lives in Marinette's hands. After what happened in the season 4 finale though, it's led Marinette to have her doubts about this, considering all of the Miraculous were kept within her yo-yo and she still couldn't prevent Shadow Moth from stealing them. I so wish that this episode could have had more time to dive into this subject because Felix regretfully tells her that wasn't your fault. And while it's clear that Marinette knows it was his doing, I still would have loved to see that closure between the two of them. Just as Ladybug is about to accept their rings, they're interrupted by Tom, Sabine, and Adrian, who's brought a surprise for her: lamb chops. All throughout this episode, Adrian has struggled to amount to the level of care and precision that Marinette puts into her own surprises for him. He went as far as to attempting to learn knitting, buying her meat not once, but twice, thanks to Plag's awful romantic advice, and even baking her a cake. One of you guys commented this on my reaction video, and I'll never look at that cake the same. While Adrian's surprised to see Kagami and Felix in Marinette's room, he reminds them all of the rings which slipped out of Marinette's hands earlier, and since none of them can be honest with Adrian, they all struggle to lie and cover up each other's terrible lies after the next, confusing Adrian even more on what's considered an act of romance. Lo and behold, the rings just so happened to be beneath his feet, and at the worst time possible, Adrian performs a magic trick that makes the rings disappear, pulling Felix's out from behind his ear, and Kagami's ring reappearing in Felix's hand, which is some serious magic trick skill if you ask me. Felix loses his cool and demands Adrian to hand over his ring, when Adrian unintentionally controls Felix into relaxing. At this point, Chrysalis and Tomoe's plan is set in motion, resulting in them to get access to Kagami's location as soon as she answered the phone, kind of like when Kagami was akumatized into Oni-chan. Yaksi Gozen's new powers allow for her to paralyze anyone her beam touches, resulting in Felix to freeze and be captured. At last, Felix and Lila meet, but not in the way I would have ever imagined. I remember theorizing way back in season 4 about the two of them meeting and whether or not they'd work together, so this was surreal to finally see. Can we also talk about how much taller Chrysalis is? I know she's wearing heels, but her gray hair even has me wondering if she's a grown woman in disguise. Quickly though, she comes to learn that Felix doesn't have possession of his ring, but rather Kagami's. And to my surprise, Chrysalis nor Tomoe take Kagami's ring. I'm also shocked that Chrysalis didn't try and go for the Peacock Miraculous. This whole plan about targeting the objects that hold the Amok really got me thinking back to an old theory video I made regarding Lila and how she could potentially go about getting Marinette akumatized, which involved Lila getting a hold of Adrian's rings, since I feel like she has to know they hold some kind of value, if not already knowing that he too is a senti monster after Natalie exposed the truth to her in the last season. Kagami, now having Felix's ring, transforms into Ryuko and takes her mother head on. Ryuko's new transformation is amazing, and I love this one moment where she glides her fingers across her sword. I also loved this moment when Ladybug tries to tell Tomoe, "Come to your senses, prove to your daughter that you've changed." Chrysalis, realizing that their plan won't work, orders Tomoe to help her escape indiscreet. And it's then that Tomoe rejects the Ultra Akuma, remaining loyal to Lila and her plan. I'm still confused as to whether or not Tomoe actually meant any of what she said, since a tear does fall down her cheek, but I guess we'll eventually see where her loyalty stands, if it ever comes down to honoring Lila's wishes or protecting her daughter Kagami. In the end, Kagami and Felix return their rings to one another, and Chrysalis vanishes from the scene. I'm still shocked that we finally got to see her, and I hope we continue to see more of her as the season progresses. Sweetest parents, for the millionth time, remind Adrian that he's already part of the family as they all have dinner together, and I was so excited to hear Plag call Tiki Sugar Cube. I've really missed that. And of course, we can't forget about the end scene because they've been too juicy this season. And in this episode, we can see Tomoe joining a meeting with the Secret Society in a private space very similar to what we saw in the London special, where they go to remember Gabriel as being an exceptional diamond, since his chair was of course the diamond. This is when one of the chairs introduced the new king of luxury, and in unison they all say, "Long live the diamond." Somebody has officially filled in for Gabriel now, but the question is who? This person is referred to as a king, but I think it could either be one of two people, the Supreme or Lila. It's been revealed that the Supreme will play a role in the Tokyo special, which will be releasing next month on November 1st. I think if the Supreme were to become the new Diamond Chair, it would make for a great segue into setting him up in the Miraculous verse, as well as the special. However, I do think that it would make the most sense for Lila to be taking over Gabriel's chair, considering her and Tomoe's alliance. While it still remains a mystery as to how these akumatizations are being pulled if Lila isn't the only one pulling the strings, I do think that if she's yet to have any involvement with the Secret Society up until now, that she could very easily change her voice and remain in disguise as the king who they may believe this person to be. I would love to hear what your thoughts and theories were on this episode and whether or not you enjoyed it. Yaksi Gozen has easily become one of my favorite Miraculous episodes of all time, and I feel like I've been saying that a lot with season 6, but when the episodes are good, they're good. Now that we're making our way into the second half of season 6, I'm even more excited to see how the rest of these episodes play out, like our next episode, Tomoe, which will be releasing next week on October 29th. The past month has truly been miraculous with all of the new content we've been getting, and we're constantly getting new updates on season 6, the Tokyo special, and other future projects, so if you want to stay up to date with all of the latest Miraculous news, then be sure to subscribe and remember to be yourself, be unique, and I'll see you guys in the next one.